name is Saul Guerrero. I am the Senior Advisor for Financing for Child Nutrition and Development at UNICEF HQ. I'm delighted to be with you today. I am sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to talk to you briefly about the Child Nutrition Fund. There's two things that I want to do over the next 10 minutes. The first is I want to give you a sense of what the Child Nutrition Fund is and what it's like and why it exists. And the second thing that I want to do is to answer the question, how can the Child Nutrition Fund help you advance and scale up women's nutrition programming, including a supplementation using multiple micronutrient supplements. So I'm going to run through a few slides, if you'll allow me, and that way you don't have to look at me the whole time. The Child Nutrition Fund is at its core a partnership. It's a partnership between like-minded donors and organizations from around the world. It was established by UNICEF with the support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, and the UK government. But it has since grown to include a number of really important partners from around the world that are critical to the pursuit of our vision for nutrition, but also who are committed to focusing on a number of high impact actions that need to be scaled up. Now, why does it exist? Historically, the way funding for these high impact nutrition actions like women's nutrition supplementation using MMS has really relied on two fundamental financing sources. National governments who invest in the health systems that provide these services, and development banks who support national governments in that effort and bring additional resources into the national systems. Other partners, whether it's bilateral donors, individuals, philanthropies, or companies, do come into this ecosystem of what is being done at country level, but each brings their own contribution, and maintaining a coherent deployment of all of this funding can be a real challenge, and there can be some missed opportunities and some duplication that comes from that complex web of multiple partners coming into the equation. So what the Child Nutrition Fund at its core is trying to do is to recognize that with national governments in the driving seat and already working really closely with development banks, we need to find a way to streamline the way other partners come into this picture and can bring value to the work that national governments and the plans that national governments are putting in place, also together with development banks. So that's really fundamentally what it tries to do, is reinforce the primary drive of national governments by trying to pull together some of the interest and support from other donors and deploy it in a way that is mutually reinforcing to what is already happening. There's three things that it does to do so. Through the program window of the Child Nutrition Fund, the CNF can add multi-year parallel financing to support and enhance what national governments are doing jointly with development banks. So for example, if in a country the national government wants to bring services to a certain level with the support, with the resources that they have, the CNF is able to deploy parallel financing alongside it to expand the reach of these services to different parts of the country, different parts of different communities that need to be targeted. So it's the ability to bring additional financing into the picture, but in a really coordinated way between what the government is already planning on doing and bring parallel financing that would enhance the original government actions. And it will be able to do so on a multiple year basis, which also gives some predictability to what is being brought into the picture. The second thing that the Child Nutrition Fund can do is deploy its supplier window. The supplier window is designed to provide financing and pre-financing instruments for manufacturing, so for the private sector in these countries. So if the national government is working to scale up, for example, women's nutrition programming, and that requires MMS, and there is a company in the country that is thinking about producing MMS nationally, but it could do with some, capital expenditure to be able to grow its factory, or, to add a new line to the factory, or it needs to make some modification, but it needs some capital, and that capital is difficult to find locally, the Child Nutrition Fund is able to bring in loans and pre-financing arrangements that would enable that local company to be ready to meet the demand from the national government for specific nutrition supplies that are linked to these interventions. And finally, and perhaps the most well-known aspect of the Child Nutrition Fund is the match window. The match window, as the name suggests, provides matching funding for supplies. So, for example, if a national government wants to invest $10 million into MMS, for example, the CNF can take those 10 millions and turn them into 20 million. Now, how does that work? Well, basically, let's say it's $100 or 100 euros, the national government is able to provide it to 100 euros for MMS, then the CNF can then procure and deliver to the country 200 euros worth of nutrition supplies. So it amplifies the commitment of national governments and the investments made by national governments by literally doubling the amount of commodities that are made available to programs. And so this has been a really important part of the work that the Child Nutrition Fund has been doing at country level. This match window allows for the procurement of MMS, balanced energy protein products for women, ready-to-use therapeutic food for the treatment of malnutrition, small quantity lipid-based nutrition supplements for the prevention of malnutrition, as well as vitamin A supplements. So a lot of the products that many of the governments are already thinking about purchasing are eligible for this funding. And over the last few months, we have been really successful, I think, about in demonstrating the value that this mechanism has for national governments who are already really starting to use it. We are about to reach $20 million in dispersed funds to date from the range of countries that you see here on the left. And we expect that to continue over the next into the next few years with incremental growth across a number of geographies now, and the CNF is now capitalized to a point where we can actually meet most of the demand that we're seeing from national governments. So this is a really important tool as you begin to plan your efforts. This is a huge contribution that the CNF can make to enhance what you're already doing. Now, is the CNF for everybody? Can any country access it? Well, I think it feels really important for a lot of the founders of the CNF to ensure that there is impact. And in order for there to be impact, we need to remain focused on the areas where the problem is biggest. So the CNF is really for countries that have high or very high levels of wasting and or stunting, as defined by the standard joint malnutrition estimates that are published every year, as well as all the front-runner countries included in the Global Action Plan on Child Wasting as of this year, right? So that list, in case you're wondering what does that translate to in terms of countries, it translates into a cohort of about 55 countries that meet this classification. And if you are looking at this right now, you're probably looking for your own country. I hope you can find it in there. As you can see, it's quite an inclusive list. So we feel that by this criteria, it's open enough to support a number of countries whilst remaining focused on where the needs are greatest. So if you're one of these countries, know that that everything that I've just said that is available to support you is there. If you're one of the countries that is not listed in here, but that has previously used the match window for nutrition supplies, know that there's also an exception made that if you have used the mechanism before this criteria was implemented, you can use it again. That's a very small number of countries, but just in case you're wondering. So thanks again for the opportunity to talk to you today about this. I hope you found that informative. If you have any other questions about how the CNF works, you have colleagues in the room who should be able to help you, and otherwise drop me a line. You can find my contact details with the organizers of today's event. Thanks again.